Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Cases. I'm Shant Kerbabian. Last week's episode about religious intolerance naturally paved the way for our next case today, which is sectarianism. There is no clear definition to the term, but according to one of the definitions, it is bigotry, discrimination, or hatred arising from attaching importance to perceived differences between subdivisions within a group, such as between different denominations of a religion, class, regional, or factions of a political movement. Now, Lebanon's religious diversity forms a beautiful social mixture, but it also creates some problems because sectarianism was chosen to enable the political sharing of power. Now, what effects does sectarianism have on the society in general? How does it affect the youth in Lebanon? And how should the youth act against sectarianism? All these questions and more will be discussed today with my guest in studio, Mr. Saad, El-Kurdi social activist. And joining us also via satellite from Beirut is human rights activist Ms. Zeinab Hakim. I'd like to welcome my guest. Welcome.
Welcome, thank you.
Now, before we get to our discussion, we have a report. Let's check it out.
Religious intolerance, in a certain sense, is not new to human history. The use of force and the practice of faith have long been closely and disturbingly associated. Even though social scientists have spoken about the difference between correlation and causation, the fact that violence and religion have often been co-occurring, conditions to serve prejudice, discrimination, and sometimes clashes are terrifying and unanswerable. The question of why religious beliefs motivate and abide violence is not readily answerable, and religious intolerance in our own time is resistant to quick fixes, which increases the probability of human rights violations. In this context, the United Nations upholds the right to free expression of religious belief in Articles 18 and 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Article 2 of the same declaration clearly forbids the discrimination on the basis of religion. Article 18 also allows the freedom to change religion. The declaration is not legally binding, however, and shockingly, the United States chose in 1998 to pass the International Religious Freedom Act, creating the Commission of International Religious Freedom and mandating that the United States government takes action against any country found to violate the religious freedoms outlined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Given that religious freedom is so vital for peace and security, how do we get governments to promote respect for religious freedom? After much debate, the United Nations passed the UN Human Rights Council Resolution 16/18, which calls for states to protect citizens and their right to free expression while promoting respect for religious differences.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you again, Mr. Saad.
Thank you.
Mr. Saad, since I have you here, and since you're a young Lebanese activist also working in this, let's talk about the notion of sectarianism. And let's try to, let me ask your opinion. What is your definition of sectarianism, first of all? Let me discuss that with you first.
Sure. For me, the definition of sectarianism is basically, defining yourself as someone who belongs to a certain group of people, and separating yourself from other groups of people that exist in the same area that you live in and operate at, under the same government maybe, or same company. It could go to the same family as well. So basically sectarianism is what happens, what goes wrong when it comes to these different sects treating each other and trying to live together. So
but what is wrong with trying to identify yourself with a certain group?
It's not the wrong thing. It's when you identify yourself as someone who belongs to a certain group, and you start to want to expand your power to include power over other groups. And sectarianism does exactly that. It gives you that power in order to have this, you'll be able to govern other groups, and you'll be able to get the most out of it. By most, I mean money, I mean resources, you name it.
But how does sectarianism in general affect the society? Before we go and focus on Lebanon, which will be our focus later on, but in a society, how could sectarianism affect a group?
it can start, you know, like in the family and affect, you know, like the kind of, you know, like the education of this little person that's, you know, like growing up learning about his sect and learning about the other sects, and by teaching him his you know, like belonging in a very wrong way, in a sectarian way, you are, you know, directly you know, drifting him towards, you know, not accepting anybody else. So here's the first link that was broken, not being able to accept anyone else, living in a you know, like in one group, like not being able to communicate with other people.
So it's like the division. It's like
the
walls that are
exactly.
dividing society. And
exactly, and it can go, you know, like it can grow with this little kid, you know, in school and then in the university, and it will, you know, all make sense to him or her, of course, when they go to you know, like get a job, and that's when exactly they face sectarianism in its like raw form. And even before that, like when it comes to, you know, like starting to understand the political thought, or whatever is happening, like watching the news, it's all going to start making sense to the kid, or to the youth, you know, like when they're like 16, 17, and they have been fed all the sectarianism, they will be able to implement it and to apply it in a way that is even much more, you know, like they might take it to the extreme, and in other cases they might take it to the
and that's where it becomes a serious problem, when anything that goes extreme might become end up being a problem. Allow me to go now to my guest via satellite in Beirut, Ms. Zeinab Hakim. Ms. Zeinab, welcome to Cases.
Thank you.
Ms. Zeinab, allow me to ask you about your opinion, your idea of the notion of sectarianism. I was talking to my guest, Mr. Saad here, and he gave his opinion, his views of sectarianism. What is your interpretation of the term sectarianism? What is your definition?
Yeah, sectarianism is the extreme belonging, I guess, for some group that there's the same idea of yours, the same belonging of maybe a religion of yours, that takes something to the extremity, and that advocates you to do something that's out of the ordinary, I guess, out of the benefit of the society. So it makes you not accept others, actually, and take your own opinion and try to implement it on others. Not
Ms. Zeinab, is the sectarianism by itself letting you go extreme? What is it that is leading people to go extreme with their belonging, or with sect, or with what they identify with?
The wrong idea about it, the implementation of the wrong idea about the sectarianism and the belonging of to one group, and the leaders that leads this group, it's affecting the youth, especially, to leading them to the wrong thoughts about sectarianism.
But you talked about the youth, and this is something we're gonna refer to later on in the second segment of the show. But like going back to sectarianism, and like talking about Lebanon, for example. What are the roots of sectarianism? Like where does sectarianism go in this country?
Sectarianism, you can say it's everywhere here in Lebanon. It's been with us since the birth, actually. It's been through our grandparents and our grandparents. It's been before the war. It's been implemented in Lebanon to break the society apart, to make this society like a crack and a hole in this society, for it not to function as a real society, as societies should do.
Okay, Mr. Assad, do you agree with this notion that it's like for example, one of the arguments is that sectarianism was there because of the notion of divide and conquer, and what are the roots of sectarianism here in the country? Let's talk about Lebanon, since we're taking Lebanon as an example, as a case study here. Sure.
Well, I think it's not only like the idea of forming this country was based on a sectarian and a divide and conquer notion, and it was basically a result of things compiling since like the start of time. I mean, that's how we are. That's how we are as humans. We identify ourselves with our group.
Is this how
wherever we exist?
Is this how you are? Or is this how you were programmed to be? Somehow?
Not programmed. We were never programmed to become this way. We learned to become this way. We were programmed to identify each other in a group and work together in order to survive. And like when we learned how to survive each group on its own, we eventually led each other to like finding out about other groups and identifying them as the other, and actually competing with them over resources, over anything. So basically, it can go back to this place, but I mean, it depends where we want to go back. We can go back till Lebanon was Mount Lebanon, basically. Or we can go back to when Sykes and Picot, drew the borders and decided to, put this country, it has the most Christians and the most
so
Druze,
it was divided
whatever,
through religious or sectarian
definitely
basis.
It was made this way for a reason, mainly because Lebanon is right at the sea, facing Europe, and basically when people started moving in from other parts of the world, this happened naturally. These sects started to take certain areas in Lebanon before it was named Lebanon. Started taking certain areas, like the Druze took the mountain, because basically mountains are very they're a safe place, and Druze as a minority wanted that in this area. And then the Christians came, and it was all forming based on a certain need, a certain need to feel safe or to have power in this area. And things started happening, and then we had to deal with each other. We were 18 sects put together in a border that was drawn with a pen or whatever, it was drawn, and we had to learn how to live with each other. And this is where it all went wrong. I mean, we started wanting the most of these resources. We started wanting to have our own areas, our own representatives in the council. We started trying to form each other.
This is one of the issues, that politically Lebanon is based on a sectarian basis.
Definitely.
And this is how people share power according to their sects. Do you think this is a problem or not?
It is the main problem.
Definitely.
It is the main problem. I mean, the moment we start thinking, I mean, we had to be together. These 18 sects were put together in this place called Lebanon, and we really had to figure it out. And the way we went about it was, let's divide this. Let's not share anything. If everybody takes a certain part of this land, and we just live,
and that's it, we're okay.
Yeah, and as if, I mean, I don't know why we didn't think of, we didn't forecast that a war is going to happen eventually if we do it that way. And what's even much more shocking to me is that we still haven't learned that that's not how we do it. That's
one of the problems we'll talk. But Zeinab, we were talking about the situation in Lebanon, and how 18 sects, according to my guest here, and were put there, and they had to learn to live together. It was difficult. Do you agree with this notion? Agree that it was difficult, or it's impossible for 8 sects to coexist? One small piece of land?
Actually, I don't think that this was the deal long ago, before the war happened and before the people and the politicians started to everyone to draw his own map of his own area, to put some people from a certain sect here and put another from here. No, it wasn't. It just was implemented after that in order to weaken the essence of the society, in order to take control of it. Actually, we can learn how to live together. We used to live together, but the thoughts of wrecking this society has taken over us. The thought of control, if you want to say, for one sect to control everything else, raising anybody else, anybody from another thinking, maybe from another ideology, from another religion, that thought just killed us, and that thought is denying us the right of living together.
But Zeinab, don't you think, Zeinab, that people were wired in some way which helped whatever power, whatever party that wanted to implement sectarianism succeed actually in implement that? Don't you think people were some sort like ready for this?
I guess they have been fed up enough to be ready, actually, because this idea, as I told you, it wasn't here before. We learned how to live this way. We learned how to live in sects. We learned how to live away from each other and apart from each other. It have been implemented over the years again and again and again since birth. Any kid is just like, it's like fed like from the birth. Like they gave us the milk of sectarianism from birth. So we grow up with that.
And how are you going to change that now?
I'm going to change that by standing side by side with my friends, of course, with the youth like me, with the future of this society, by teaching others and by just the campaign, awareness campaign for that.
Okay, Mr. Saad, there's an interesting question here. Like, does you being religious? I'm asking this question. You being religious, does it mean you have to be a sectarian at the same time? Like, does this go together? Like, if you're religious, it means you have to be this hillbilly cheer leader for your own sect or for your own religion. Do these things go together?
In fact, you being religious means that you shouldn't be sectarian at all. It's the basis of these religions. They teach tolerance, they teach acceptance, they teach loving your neighbor. I mean, your neighbor is something, it's not, they do not mean neighbor by neighbor. It's not like the person who lives 2 floors down, you know, like it's your neighbor, like your friend, like your people, you know, like people of your society who are from a different house, from a different background. So no, definitely not. I mean, being religious is definitely being tolerant, and being secular, I mean, it's the essence of all religions. You know, like having your own beliefs and being okay with other people having other beliefs.
And as you mentioned, like your neighbor in this case is the whole country, is the whole population.
It's not just about, you know, like the person who lives with you in the same building. It's the person who shares with you like this country's resources.
Okay, well, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen. After the break, we will have Ms. Zeinab's opinion on this notion, on this question, and after that we'll talk about the effect sectarianism has on youth in society in Lebanon. Stay tuned.
Pollution and climate change, medicine manipulation, genetically modified food, the destruction of wildlife, and corporate exploitation. These are all part of a new terrorism threatening our future.
Eco-terrorism, global awakening to a world under threat.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about the notion of sectarianism, and we're going to focus on the effect it has on youth. But before we go that, I asked earlier if being sectarian, it means, if being religious means it also you are a sectarian person, or you have to be a sectarian person. And Zeinab, I would like to have your opinion or your answer about this question. What do you think about this?
Of course not. I'm against that totally. Sectarianism is taking religious to the extreme, actually. Yes. So being religious is being acceptable of the other, is being incorporating with the others, is living with the other, is sharing a whole society with the others. Religious teach you how to be tolerant, teach you how to be forgiving, teach you how to live with others, not just fight them for just having another religion.
Okay, this is a great answer, and this is one of the common grounds I think Lebanese have to agree with each other and have to see. But before we go to our before we continue with our discussion, we have a report about sectarianism and how it affects youth in Lebanon. Let's take a listen.
On September 2012, the International Pew Research Center conducted a research tackling religious violence and intolerance around the world. The findings were shocking, as official and unofficial hostility towards religious freedom rises in every corner in the world, including the United States, and thus the number of tolerant nations has significantly decreased. In this context, religious intolerance in the Middle East is just a part of the larger pattern. But how exactly is the level of prejudice and discrimination against people of different religion and distinctive sects? Many researchers and intellectuals across the Middle East believe that the so-called Arab Spring would bring social and political justice amidst stages of corruption, and such justice will spill over into more religious tolerance. However, the Pew Research Center showed that even before the Arab Spring, government restrictions on religion and social hostilities involving religion were higher in the Middle East and North Africa than in any other region of the world. The situation got worse during the political turmoil phase. In this regard, the study concluded that restrictions in the region remained high in 2011. While social hostilities markedly increased and the number of countries in the region experiencing sectarian or communal violence between religious groups doubled from 5 to 10. For instance, the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, whose members find a haven in some parts of Syria, instituted strict Sharia laws in a number of northern Syrian towns and carried out sectarian attacks against Syrian Alawites and Christians. The question that remains is, until when will this intolerance be tolerated?
Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to apologize for a technical problem that we had, and we put a wrong report. But anyway, I would like to commence the discussion with my guest here, and let's get to the bottom of this issue, which is sectarianism and how it affects youth. Now, it affects the whole society, but there's a reason we want to focus on its effect on youth, is because those are the basis of the society. This is the future generation, or the future leaders of a community. And if they are being raised or brought up with this idea, with this notion, I think there's a problem here. Don't you agree?
Of course. I mean, it's the problem in Lebanon. It's not a problem. It's the problem in the whole world right now. And it's not only like it's represented with these sects, but I think it could be like a way to like promote peace in a way, like stop these wars that have been going on for years and years. All were for like resources, definitely oil, mostly, and the only way to let people know, or like kind of convince people not to fight anymore, is to like promote this tolerance. I mean, that's all we do. Like, we confront each other. That's nothing. Like that has never been good to us, and we haven't been learning anything about it. We always need to prove that our existence is based on your denial of existence. I mean, you should deny other people's existence in order to feel good about yourself, and that's it's the worst thing that you can ever do to a society. And we don't realize until everything is like a mess and everything has been destroyed. We do not, like for us, if we go kill like, I don't know, 1,000 people from the other sect, we just do it because we're trying to prove a certain point, but we do not realize that they're gonna come back and kill. But I don't think maybe 2,000.
This might be true in the back in the Civil War, but right now it has changed, and it has changed into a different way. Like, I don't think people. Do you think people try to kill each other right now? I don't think.
Of course. I mean,
wipe each other out?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it doesn't have to be only in terms of, you know, like killing with a machine gun. It can be with a bomb. It can be with you know, like a financial assassin. You know, like it can be a lot of things, and it can also be with just, you know, like these threats, and I mean living under a threat, like receiving a message from I don't know who, alone is an act of, you know, terrorizing a whole country, and that's something awful to us, you know, like to have to deal with.
Okay, let me revert a question to my guest, Ms. Zeinab. Ms. Zeinab, like, what is the overall level of sectarianism among youth?
Among who?
Youth.
Youth. Actually, sadly, I must say it's very high here in Lebanon, in specific. It's because, as I said before, it's been fed to us since we were just little. It's been fed to us through news, through our environment, through our friends, through our family. It's been given to us slowly through the years.
Ms. Zeinab, given to Lebanese by whom and why?
Given to Lebanese, I guess, from the outside, in order to weaken the essence of the society and the foundation of the society, that are the youth. When the youth are not functioning well in a society, when the youth are actually, I'm sorry to use this word, corrupted and rotten in a society, the society will not function well. The society will not be led to developing after all. It will not be led to technology. It will not be led to raise its own finance, to be better in the future.
But aren't there people benefiting from this? In the country, not outside, in the country.
Of course, they are benefiting because they are actually, I think they are funded by external alliance, I guess.
Saad, do you agree with this notion that they are like, we think that in a society or in a sectarian society, you have a leader, right? Every sect has its leader, and the people are some sort of the clients.
Sure.
And there's basically like the leader feeds the client in order to get the votes, in order to so it's some sort of a circle in which the people are down and the leader is leading, and the idea that people do not think outside of this triangle is what's troubling.
Of course, that's also like the main issue, like, and this is like the mechanism of you know, like keeping this war going on. And unfortunately, we live in the part of the world that is basically the land where you know, like people who have the money you know, like execute their missions, you know, and they don't want to do it in their countries. They don't want to mess it up. They have these like poor countries that are already divided, already have sectarian problems, and they can just, you know, like send them some money and send them some weapons and let them, you know, like take it out on each other and give them the feeling that they are their main warriors and their main messengers and whatever, like. Especially in Lebanon, it's.
Okay, what is the youth participation in the political life in Lebanon? Let's talk about that, and let's talk about how sectarianism might affect the participation of, let's say, for example, students of Lebanon in universities, or even like, let's talk about the formal political participation of Lebanese youth.
The only youth that are getting a piece of the political arena in Lebanon are the youth that are. You know, descendants from families that are already in power. Youth who are, you know, like who have a different vision do not get any chance of, you know, like even getting close to the parliament. The closest to the parliament they can get is being journalists, maybe, who go there and, you know, like do
report from the within the parliament.
That's like the most they can get from the parliament, or anything that is, you know, like legislative or, you know, executive. And even in the public sector, when it comes to, like, if I come from a public administration background, I studied that in university, and when I wanted to get a job in the public sector in Lebanon, I wasn't able to, because basically I didn't have you know, like the connection. They always ask you for the connection. Who's your guy there? You know, like, you want to go get a job in
Where
this,
does the sect come here?
Oh yeah, basically the sect, the whole idea that there's a quota for each sect is awful. We do not care for the competency of the candidate. We care for the sect and how it's going to affect the quota. And in some cases, the quota doesn't matter in case the person has a good connection. So it's all because of the same concept, which is you have to have a quota. And by having a quota, you get these people who get their relatives who are from the same, same family, same religious.
So it's the same vicious cycle.
It's a vicious cycle.
All over and over again throughout the history. Exactly. Ms. Zeinab, what is the role of education in this regard? In Lebanon, for example, what is the role that educators should take against sectarianism?
Of course, educators should start from the young age, before university, starting from the schools, starting from young age, as I said, to implement the thought of acceptance and living together, like refusing the sectarianism, even if they come from families that are filled with this idea. They should start by putting kids from different sects and different religions together, making them share together, live together, like even the smallest thing, share food together, to know each other more. As they say, human is the enemy of something that he doesn't know. Let them know about each other. Let them know that the other religion is not a taboo. It's not something to be afraid of, actually. It's something to love and ask about. More information about something else, another experience. It's very beautiful, actually. And yes.
Ms. Zeinab, how are they going to not fear each other? How are they going to know each other more when they're living in this separate bubbles? Every sect has its own bubble, and everyone's centered there. And fear of the other is because of this. How are you going to these boundaries?
For me, it was the Lebanese university. By going to a Lebanese university, by interacting with other religions, by meeting them, by sitting with them, by sharing ideas with them, by sharing thoughts, by knowing that they are not different from me, actually. They have a lot of things in common like I do, like a lot of interest together. It's that idea. Just meet them. Don't be afraid. Just get out of that bubble.
Okay. Mr. Saad, this is a very interesting idea for me, because in a lot of surveys that were done among youth, and what's troubling is that those are very educated youth and very progressed youth, but when it comes to the notion of sectarianism, the rates are very high. The way they see each other is very different. And like what Ms. Zeinab is talking about is great, it's beautiful, but let's talk practically. Sure. On ground, practically, out of this utopian, beautiful world, how can we really implement these ideas that she's talking about, like knowing each other, talking to each other, sharing things? Like we are all, we represent one thing, but how are you going to show people this, the youth in particular?
For me, what Ms. Zeinab talked about, it's true. I mean, we all should, mingle and, have like common friends and friends from every sect and whatever. But, this exists. It happens. I mean, I was in a mixed university. I was in a mixed school. I had friends from all religions. But when I came back home, not necessarily my family. I'm talking in general. Like my family is very tolerant. But when it comes to certain families, these families are the ones who, have the full responsibility for how tolerant or how intolerant the youth are. Okay. But for me, honestly, I do not think education has to happen. Like it has to have the main role. But before that, before you are able to integrate anything that has to do with religious tolerance and secularism, or anything that has to do like that is meant to defy sectarianism, you have to have the power to do that. I mean, we can say that education should promote all these things from now until years and years, and not be able to implement it.
But implementing it on ground.
Exactly, and in order to be able to integrate these things in our educational system, and actually, like, force these public schools, and this is the most important, like private schools are already there, and they are integrating like public schools are like.
Let me interrupt you there in this one idea. Since you mentioned the idea of public and private schools, I was going to ask you about like universities, public universities and private universities, and the political life of the youth there. I mean, in a lot of private universities, students are prohibited from practicing certain political rights in the university. Meanwhile, in public universities, students are practicing their politics, but with a lot of problems.
Yes.
With a lot of problems happening in public universities. Sorry. What is the problem there?
The problem is the practice itself. The practice in public universities is not a practice of political freedom. It's not. It's basically, this is sectarianism. What has been happening in the Hadath, like in the Lebanese university in Hadath, with a certain political party, this is sectarianism. This is not a political practice. When you come and you I don't know, like you try to overpower everybody else, and have like a unanimous political view in this university, and imposing it and having all these posters everywhere. No, this is not the right way. The right way is having a student council and being represented with all the students. And there are a lot of people who do not belong to this certain political group. And it's the same thing when it comes to the Lebanese university, they say, in I don't know, like in other parts of Lebanon, and Furnish Big and whatever. Like, it's really like, for me, it's really shocking. This is not a political practice. It's basic sectarian practice.
And that's what's happening in universities, especially in public universities recently.
Definitely in public universities, and in private universities with all these clashes, confrontation all the time. I studied at AUB, and for me it was a confrontation throughout, like the 4 years I spent there. It was basically, like they considered it as a small village that represents the whole country, and for them it was really like important. You'd only see them around university when it's elections time.
Okay.
And the political practice is everything that happens after you are elected, and this never happens. This is never like the case. They get their seats and that's it.
Okay. I'll have to interrupt you here now, Mr. Saad, because we have to take a short break. Sure. After the break, we're gonna see some of the findings of a survey and some interesting points and some maybe shocking points after the break. Stay tuned.
Beyond the lines, beyond the surface. Depth, clarity, substance. Beyond the discourse.
Beyond politics, beyond the shallowness of everyday politics.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Now, under the title describing Lebanese youth, there has a national and psychosocial survey done by the American University of Beirut in 2010 had some findings, and one of the main findings we're going to show them. And now, the first one on sectarianism. The Lebanese youth expressed a good deal of sectarianism with an overall average of 3.78 out of 5. Now, Ms. Zeinab, I want to ask you about your opinion on this finding. Lebanese youth, they see average of 3.78 out of 5. They expressed a huge deal of sectarianism.
Actually, this is a disastrous number for Lebanon that have, as Mr. Saad said, more than 18 sects right now. It's a very disastrous number. How can they live when they are implanted, when the thoughts of sectarianism are implanted in their heads? How can they accept others? How can they live together? How can they know each other? I mean, in a country as small as Lebanon and as diverse as Lebanon, it's gotta be disastrous, really.
Ms. Zeinab, this was done in 2010. What do you think, if you do the survey now, what do you think the results would be?
I think it would be increased right now.
What is the reason you think so?
After what have been happening lately and everything throughout the years from 2010 till now, I think it's a massive race.
Mr. Saad, do you agree that if you do the survey right now, after 3 years from this, you would you'd see the numbers increasing?
I don't actually.
Why not?
The way I see it is, you know, from my surrounding. I mean, these 3.78 out of 5, they live in homogeneous societies, and they live in places where there are different people from different sects, and the way the fear is now, you know, like it has taken over our lives and over everything. So if you do it right now, like in this month, after all these bombings, yes, you'll definitely see a decrease. But if you know, like let it settle down and let these wars, like bombing wars, stop for a while, you'll see it increase again. That's how we are. When we are faced with a disaster, we stop being sectarian for a while, and then whenever it's like safe again, we had this is the case for I'm saying for a certain group. There is a certain group that never stops being sectarian.
Mr. Saad, I'll stop you here. Zeinab, I see you nodding. I see you disagreeing.
Yeah.
Please share with us. What are your thoughts?
I think after what's been happening lately and the bombing and the declarations of every sect from here and there, it's been like. It's been awful. Hearing from others, hearing from my friends actually, from close people to me, looking at the social networks, the Twitter, the Facebook, the statuses they write. It's something shameful that I read every day. I don't think it has been decreasing, not even a little bit, after the bombing and after everything that's been going on.
All right. Well, all right. You're entitled to having your opinion as you are. So let's move to the second point now. On social identities, the most highly endorsed self-categorization in a family is sectarian identification. It comes third. So sectarian identification comes third, according to this study, in like a categorization. Your comment on that?
That's very representative of the truth. I mean, that's how you usually define yourself. Whenever somebody asks you where you're from, you tell them I'm from X part of Lebanon, and
so it's not Lebanon. I'm from this part of Lebanon.
This part. No, you never hear anybody. I mean, if they're outside Lebanon, definitely they'd say Lebanon first. But if you are in Lebanon, the first question they would want to ask you is where you're from, and they're gonna want to know what part of you know, like the sectarian body are you. And it's very important to a lot of people that they know your sect before they even trust you, because all this like you know, like judgment,
the pre-notions and
judgmental
prejudgments.
Yeah, these prejudgments, they exist in their heads, and they need to use them. I mean, if you don't, you know, tell them what sect you belong to, they're gonna be
suspicious, and
they can't trust you.
Okay.
If you're from their sect, you're safe.
Okay. Let's go to the next point, which is on the educational level. Now, youth are significantly educated, with over 41% of the population holding a university degree. Ms. Zeinab, this was a notion that I referred to earlier. Don't you find it tragic that with an educated population of youth of 41%, you still have people categorizing themselves and identifying themselves with the sect they belong to?
taking an education or a degree in the university doesn't fully have to mean that you are open to others. It means you have like specialized in something, in some subject in a university, and the other comes from social networking, from social, from going out, from your parents, from your peer, from your friends. That's where you get the sectarianism. It doesn't come from education. Actually, education helps you in the far future in your job, maybe in your discussions and something like that.
Ms. Zeinab, let me interrupt you here. Like the argument that 41% are educated, but like believing that education brings in some sort of open-mindedness to the person. This is the argument here. Like I believe that if you're educated and if you're holding a university degree, you must be some sort of like you must have some sort of open-mindedness, and this is what education brings. Don't you agree with this notion?
That's right. That's the logic. But it seems in Lebanon everything works backwards. It doesn't have to be logical in Lebanon. So that's why when you say that high number of education in Lebanon, it's really it's freaky to see that. Yeah.
Okay. Now moving on to the other point, which is on the warmth and acceptance between youth. Average to mild levels of warmth and acceptance towards other sects. Saad, youth are not acceptance or warmth towards each other. Your comments on that?
It's also very logical to have this finding. When you are in war with another part of your society, and your parents keep telling you about how their parents killed your uncle, let's say, you're gonna have like some sort of vengeance inside you whenever somebody tells you I'm from this sect or that sect. You're gonna remember your uncle, or you're gonna remember like I don't know, like maybe your dad. It can be like this personal, and we have all been killed, and we all killed. Yani we have been killed, and we murdered other people, and that's the problem. I mean,
there's blood. There's blood on
There's
hand.
blood, and still hasn't, right?
It's there.
It's there.
All right. Moving on to the intersectarian marriage. This is a very interesting point. 2/3 of the youth would not consider marrying someone from a different sect. Ms. Zeinab, what is your opinion on this?
Actually, also it's logical to say that, because when there's no acceptance and when there's the sectarian part in Lebanon is very high, so it's very logical to see this number and to see this fright of mingling and trying to marry from another sect.
Ms. Zeinab, would you consider marrying someone else from a different sect?
Yeah, of course, if I'm in love.
Okay, so it has to be.
That's what I was waiting for.
That's natural.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something we are able to choose. Like it's not a choice we make on our own. It might be
but some people are
for a lot of people
not to accept it.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That's the problem.
Yes.
This is one of the major points.
But I mean, they give in because basically their parents, like tell them, if you do this, we're gonna like stop talking to you. We're gonna like
you're losing
boycott.
your family, basically.
Yeah, we're gonna boycott your wedding. Nothing is gonna. And you tend to like make the sacrifice.
This is a huge
because you have
issue.
always been with your family.
This is a huge issue, especially civil marriage, and we might take it into another case. Now I'm going to move to the final point, which is on values. 80% of participants scored higher than the midpoint on sectarian in-group bias. Mr. Saad.
Well. يعني in-group bias, and this is even more like like it's even more shocking to me, because basically the closer these sects are in terms of general ideology, the more they fight because of the friction, because they are very close in terms of ideology, and there's this like small little detail,
and this is
where the fraction is happening, and
this is where the problem lies.
Yes.
Ms. Zeinab, final words, please, from you. What do you think should happen in 1 minute to overcome? You cannot overcome sectarianism, but what are the practical points that we should take?
Actually, you can start from, everyone can start from himself. Yani. You can help by generalizing the idea of acceptance, by helping others to go into NGOs, to go into society and to get open to others, and just to work on society and see how beautiful it is to live together and how rewarding it is for our future.
Okay, Ms. Zeinab Hakim, I would like to thank you for joining us in Cases. Also, Mr. Saad Kurdi, thank you very much for joining us in the show. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the case. This was the issue of sectarianism in Lebanon. I hope we managed to get in some ideas towards the show. Now, thank you very much. See you next week. Bye-bye.